magazine. Salt and pepper and heavy D up in the limousine. Hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack, Mr. Magic Molly Mall. I let my tape rock till my tape pop. Smoking weed and bamboo, sipping on.
All right, everybody, welcome. Fantasy scoring is back, baby. It's so nice to see. Offenses have finally caught up to the defenses, and we're getting dialed in on who and what we can trust. So welcome back to Joe Mixon, Evan Engram, A.J. Brown, Davante Smith. You know, heck, even Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts made an appearance in the box score for 2 weeks straight. So that's encouraging as well. But, of course, no week is complete without some no-shows. We are looking at you, Travis Etienne. And also, speaking of no-shows, Nelson is out this week because we're recording one day earlier in order to work around my vacation, which starts in like 9 hours. So we apologize. We don't have Nelson with us, but that's the way it goes.
Bye week.
Yep,
He's on. Nelson went on his early bye week.
It'll be a bye week for me next week. So we'll have fun with it anyway. So let's get into the Empire. Chris, why don't you start hitting us with some observations here?
Yeah, guys, another interesting week in the NFL, in the fantasy landscapes. A lot of observations on my end, but let's start with the first one here is the NFC North is a fantasy dreamland this year. I know we've touched on that a little bit throughout the season so far, but it's just shaping up more and more each week here. And with the unfortunate loss of Hutchinson yesterday on the Lions, I think, every Detroit Lions game you're going to want a part of every week. This Lions offense is going to be humming both sides of the ball. Their defenses, even though they did a decent job somehow against Dak and the Cowboys yesterday, their defense is going to be slowly falling apart. Goff has all day to throw behind that offensive line. Montgomery and Gibbs have all day to run and holes all day long. Get used to sitting down and enjoying Detroit Lions games the rest of the season and hope that you have fantasy players going on both sides of their games. Same thing with, Caleb and the Bears are in a groove now. That offense is looking really good. High hopes. I talked about it last week. They have high hopes going forward. The Vikings, when they come off of their bye, maybe we get TJ Hawkinson back in that offense, as well as a now fully recovered Jordan Addison, who was dealing with his injuries early in the season. That offense is a top 5 offense. And even now with Jordan Love, back in fold, throwing 4 touchdown passes yesterday. That Packers offense looks great. Let's keep our eyes on the Wicks and Reed injuries from yesterday, see if they're going to miss any time. But if they're a complete offense, I mean, what a dream. When these 4 teams play each other and play outside of their division, I don't care. Give me all of it. So that's my first observation. Loving the NFC North games this year. Matty Mo, what do you got?
Yeah, no, it's the NFC North was one of my observations, so I figured I'd jump in real quick. Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago, and Green Bay are plus, like the top 4 plus point differentials, 40 points or more. And look at the Bears, and credit to them, 35 points, 36 points, first time back-to-back in like forever. Mm-hmm. But look, let's see who they played the last 2 weeks. Carolina and Jacksonville. Two of the worst teams. Yeah, no, and they have the next 3 games. Excellent. Like Washington, I think New England, and somebody else. Then it's all divisional games. So we'll see how that all works out. The other NFC North points, Chris mentioned Hawkinson coming back. So the Vikings look really solid there. Green Bay, as you mentioned. But the one thing I did want to mention with the Lions, and as you mentioned with the Hutchinson injury, we need the passing game. The passing game has been so efficient. Just look at Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has 42 targets on the season through 5 games. 18 came in 1 game, but he's been so efficient. He's catching a touchdown in like every game he threw for a touchdown. But let's see here. He has 3 of his 5 games of 45 yards or under. So that's how efficient it's been. J-Mo, in his first 2 games, had 20 targets. In his last 3 games, had 9 targets. he scores a touchdown. He just really needs one pass play, but he had a touchdown called back. So I think for for fantasy purposes, as horrible as that Hutchinson injury was, we don't ever want to see that. But as you mentioned, it could open up, their defense, not getting the pressure it was. I mean, the guy was leading in sacks with a bye week, and now the secondary could be maybe more exposed. So that was my thought on that.
And let me just add in, there's going to be an honorary member of the NFC North on weeks 15, 16, and 17, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. They play Green Bay, Minnesota, and Chicago this 3 weeks. So, and they're a fun offense as well.
Yeah.
So, they're kind of like, the fifth Beatle here. So.
They're a fun offense, Dan, but how frustrating to be a big Seattle investor like I am these last couple of weeks. The Giant game a couple of weeks ago we talked about, and then I was all stoked for the Thursday night game versus San Fran, and let's not forget about that game, even though it was 4 days ago. The game is 36-24, the final. You look and you think, all right, what do we have here? And everybody bombs out on the Seattle side except for Ken Walker. Geno didn't do anything. He got his garbage points late in the fourth there. But DK dropping a couple touchdowns, a couple near misses for Metcalf and JSN. JSN, another game where the targets are there and the production is just It's like a game that it's not a complete bombing. It's not a 20-plus point game. It's just another 11-point performance. Ho-hum, move on to the next week. What do we do with him? We're going to stick him in our lineup yet again as our flex or wide receiver 3. We need that 11-point average right there for JSN to get to that 17, 18 to actually start contributing. But you can't take him out of your lineup because those 10 targets are there every week, and he looks great.
Yeah, absolutely. I put out a tweet after that game. I said he's kind of like a bag of slightly stale chips. I mean, you open it up and it's like, I don't have anything else to eat, but these suck. But I'll have a few. And you kind of hate it the whole time because it's not what you were expecting. It's not what you wanted. And that's basically JSN every week this year. Because you're right. Most of the time, unless you have a super deep wide receiver core, you're going to end up putting him in your lineup, and you're going to end up facing probably mild disappointment yet again.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And what was frustrating for me was that last drive of the half where they actually moved the ball all the way down the field. They hit him like 3 times, and San Francisco was soft in the slot. And second half, they just didn't. I don't know what happened there. And the other real point is the last 2 weeks, Kenneth Walker's kind of been game scripted out as far as running the ball, but the guy's putting up. I mean, he's getting targeted like 9 times each of the last 2 weeks. So that's been the positive there. And I think it works out where this will still be a fun team, and rest of season, you still want to be invested in this team, and it'll work out, but it has been frustrating.
Yeah, I'm not giving up on this Seattle offense. It just hasn't clicked these last couple of weeks, but you could see it's right there. They're so close to being one of these top 10 explosive offenses that you want to be in fantasy. I love that DK was going off on the offensive coordinator to get him the ball and everything. And he'll have his weeks. It's just been a little downswing for Metcalf after the
he had a lot of
first
targets.
4 weeks looked so great. Yeah, great. Yeah, the targets are everything is there, Dan. Everything is there for everything to work, except it just hasn't synced up, and that's what happens. And we're seeing it in fantasy straight across the board on a lot of teams. Look at the Bengals yesterday. Their offense, we are obsessed with it. We love it. Higgins, Burrow, Chase, all these guys, 17 points, and really nobody does much in that game. There'll be better weeks. So it's a week-to-week league like we talk about. Second observation, guys, after everything, this was a huge week for the running back stashes, the guys that we throw in our deep leagues at the end of our bench, those little bids that people are like, why is he picking this guy up? Our RB 7 or 8. Matty Mo, our boy Sean Tucker rose from the dead yesterday. He came out of nowhere.
Year too early.
Year two.
Yeah,
I know.
We had all the
we had all the shares last year. They just rotted on our benches and then gave up on them. But besides Tucker, the king of this topic is Tyrone Tracy, obviously, who we all had stashed. He's starting to look like he is going to be the real deal. And I don't know what they're going to do now with Singletary. Maybe they hold him out another week and start turning this backfield over to Tracy. But at minimum, when Singletary comes back, now it depends. It really depends on the head coach's outlook. I know Daboll's guy is Singletary, and some coaches go with the hot hand approach. Some other coaches go with the, our starter doesn't lose his job to injury, and when he comes back, he regains his role and everything. I'll have to look into that further to see how Daboll goes about. But regardless, Tracy has earned a bigger share of the pie and definitely a playable RB2, even when Singletary comes back, in my opinion. But besides him, Kamani Vidal shares, they rose up from the dead. Isaac Arendo with Mason getting banged up. He looks like he's going to earn some, extra time on the field, extra snaps. Everybody's saying that. It's a good thing that, you know what, guys, I gotta say something there. Everybody was saying that he got his leg clipped at the 5-yard line. I don't know. I don't really think that he was going down. I don't know.
I think he had it. And then he decided to slide. Even Debo was like, I don't know why he slid. I wouldn't have slid.
It looked like he slid. No, it definitely looked like he slid the way he did. But he did get clipped.
He did get clipped, but I think he would have made it if he wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I think so too.
No problem. But I think, let's see if Mason maybe misses a week, and then all of a sudden, all of our Isaac Garendo shares get in our lineup, for a 1-week spot start. And then Trey Benson got on. I know Connor got a little nicked up. I was watching that game. He went to the sideline a little bit. Benson got 5 or 6 touches. Looked decent, actually, in that time. I don't know if it was just, him subbing in for the Connor injury just for a while, or maybe the Cardinals are starting to try and slowly work him in a little bit each week to the point where he gets some more touches as the season goes along. Deontay Foreman. I mean, we all dropped Deontay Foreman, but now Jerome Ford probably misses some time. And I don't think that Nick Chubb, when he comes back this week, like we all are supposed to, like he's supposed to, I don't think they could give him a full workload. So Deontay Foreman's probably going to get his 8 to 12 touches. And with Travis Etienne week to week with an injury, maybe Dearness Johnson's going to be a little bit of a, in play going forward here in a split backfield with Bigsby. So a lot of those late RB7, RB8 stashes coming into fruition. We might be able to cash in on them.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it was Friday morning. I was talking to Ben Gretsch on Twitter, and I tweeted, the reason you stash Vidal is what Garendo did last night. And that's basically the whole thing. We have 10 roster spots. You got 20, you got 10 bench spots, excuse me. And even the guys that we haven't really seen yet, like the Marshawn Lloyds, Green Bay's running 2 backs. They always use 2 backs. He's an injury away. Kendre Miller, I don't care how much the guy hates him. Jamal Williams is useless. He's a non-entity. Kamara, yes, he's got all the volume, but at some point, Kendre is going to get in there. And the other guy is Estime. The Denver backfield has been a disaster. We all thought, Sean Payton, it's a pot of gold waiting to happen.
Javonte Williams. Listen, Matt. Javonte Williams had that week where he started looking like he, was turning around, and now right back yesterday to looking
that
like
fumble killed him too.
Yeah, it's like so. Estime got the 2 carries in that game, 13 yards. But again, to my point last week, this is why you went in and you stashed, Estime. I was telling on the show, stash Estime, and you brought it up with Lloyd too. All my teams either have Estime or Lloyd as my RB8 sitting there. And again, to your point, this is why we carry 8 or 9 running backs. Trim the fat on the wide receiver room right now.
Yes.
Carry the one. If you have a McBride, Laporta, Kelsey, carry just one tight end. There's no need to carry the second tight end. One kicker, one D. Load up the running back room with anything that's out there. This was the big week for that reason why. And obviously, guys, we didn't touch on that. Gus Edwards, Saturday, I think, out of nowhere goes on IR. So, I could see Vidal actually playing a big role now. Not a big role, but you guys know what I'm saying. He's gonna find himself on the field. He had a nice long touchdown catch, and they can't give J.K. Dobbins 30 carries every week. So Vidal might be a nice serviceable piece, and he's one J.K. Dobbins hit away from being a starter on a run-heavy team.
Definitely. I mean, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube with these guys. So, that's just, once they get out there, the coaches see what they can do. And, there's these backfields in a lot of cases have been needing that spark too. So it's nice to see. And
these guys, Dan, these guys, all these running backs, the reason why we're seeing them more available in our high stakes leagues on the wire is because of all the injuries to all the positions and everyone's inability to fill out a starting lineup each week. They have to let go of the Vidals and the Estimes and the Lloyds and all these other guys we see available. If not, we wouldn't even get a chance to bid on these guys each week, but everyone's so hurt with their regular rosters and everybody being out that those are the guys that are the casualties on those teams' lineups in your league. So you're really benefiting if your team is healthy so far or somewhat healthy, and you could go to the wire and grab those Garendo shares, the estimate shares to put on as your 19th, 20th player so far. So,
the rich get richer.
There you go.
Pretty much the way it goes. All right, guys, we're going to pay the bills real quick, and we'll be right back.
DFS getting harder every year, but we're here to make it easier with the DFS Dominator because I know a lot of optimizers keep coming out. Oh, our optimizer. What about this optimizer? But that optimizer. Well, we have a cash game optimizer that leverages the projections from Dario, Billy, the award-winning projections at playerprofiler.com, and builds the best lineups for cash games that have both upside and stability because that's what you want. It's a couple clicks, boom, boom, boom. You get the best possible lineup for your cash games. But for tournaments, traditional optimizers don't work. That's why we have a Lineup Genius, which takes you through the process of building lineups the way they should be built. Which quarterbacks you want to be overweight on, then building stacks, then setting run backs, then optimizing, and generating up to 150 lineups that you can easily import into DraftKings, into FanDuel. That's the DFS Dominator. It's only $45 a year, not a week, a year. Just go to Player Profiler, click on the DFS Dominator from the menu, and you won't be sorry.
All right, we're back, and Chris, go ahead. Let's hear your next observation. Oh, you're on mute.
Forgot to take it out of the break, guys. Good. That's my first time ever doing that, guys. Being on the mute and everything. Listen, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I sat here on this show and I said George Pickens was going to be a league-winning pick and a high-end wide receiver too for your fantasy team, and one of those great mid-fourth round picks, early fifth round that you were getting him as, and I was 100% wrong. You just can't trust him. You can't trust the Steelers passing game offense. I'm considering going forward sitting George Pickens, to be honest with you, on teams that I have, the option. And a lot of my teams, I'd rather have, I know I bring him up a lot because I own a lot of shares of him, but a Darnell Mooney, a guy that was my wide receiver 5 or 6, I'd rather bring him into my offense, into my starting lineup in a high-paced offense, an offense that has more opportunity than watching a Steelers offense with my wide receiver 1 out there, and it's just run, punt, incomplete pass. I can't deal with these offenses anymore like the Steelers. So, late in the fourth quarter, I'm still staring at 2 catches for 22 yards from George Pickens. There's just certain teams you got to get out of that business of it. And will George Pickens have those weeks where he's 7 for 110 and a touchdown? Sure. But I'm not going to die on the 3 other weeks of the month grenade of him 3 for 25 and a shit passing offense. So George Pickens is a problem. That passing game is a problem. Obviously, no one's startable really in that passing game offense in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that the Steelers didn't move on from him last year. I mean, they traded Deontay. I know he's coming up on a contract, but he doesn't seem like a Steelers guy. Like the Steelers have like 3 coaches in their history. They kind of keep a lot of their guys. It's kind of like, an old school organization. And Arthur Smith, I don't know how he only runs 58% of the routes the week prior. I mean, look, he got that 31-yard pass late, which I didn't think was going to happen.
That was a just try and keep him happy type of pass, and unfortunately he goes down at the 3-yard line or scores. But Matt, he's a young receiver, a young high pick. You're not getting rid of a George Pickens. You got to have something in the wide receiver room.
But I'm saying I figured they would have traded him for something. Like to me, he's a Raider. He seems like a guy on the Raiders. I'm just, that's I think you said he's super.
Yeah, he's a head case.
He's a
head case. He's a diva.
He's
a diva. Give me the damn ball, and if I'm not getting the ball, I don't expect me to come out here and block and run my routes all hard and everything. There's a difference between a George Pickens and a Terry McLaurin. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Terry McLaurin is I'll keep my mouth shut if I'm 2 for 10 that particular week. He's a locker room guy. He's a leader. He's blocking down the field. He's in on every play. And then you have a George Pickens wide receiver. You want on your fantasy team the Terry McLaurins of the world. That's what you want instead of the George Pickens.
Yeah, totally. And the thing is, could you imagine a trade with, like Davante Adams going to the Steelers and Pickens going to the Raiders somehow? I mean, that would
be terrible. No, it would be terrible, honestly.
Terrible for
What
Adams,
does Davante Adams? Yeah, of course. What would Davante Adams go to Pittsburgh and do? He'd be more miserable.
Maybe
there.
Win a ring. I mean, or at least have a better chance than he does with the Raiders. I mean, I think he just wants out, of Vegas. But
Yeah, I hear you, Dan. But does he want his numbers too? I mean,
well, he's I don't even know if this hamstring injury is real, so it's hard to say.
It's
I mean,
it's of course it's not. Yeah, that's a fake hammy injury. Now they're talking about he can maybe come back to and play for Vegas. I highly doubt that happens. By the way, complete off topic, but we saw Max Crosby push the coach on the sideline and everything, so it made me dig into Max Crosby's contract a little bit. This Raiders team is an absolute dumpster fire. How about a trade deadline acquisition of Max Crosby getting sent over to the Detroit Lions and replacing Hutchinson for the Super Bowl run for the Lions? Because that's a Super Bowl team, the Lions. Now that they lost Hutchinson, it hurts that defense, but Crosby's got 2 years left on his deal. If they're gonna trade away Davante Adams and blow up the team, why don't you trade away Max Crosby at the same time? Blow up the team, rebuild, get all the draft picks you can, and go from there. You're gonna have a top pick. You might as well go all in and trade Max Crosby to the Lions to replace Hutchinson. Throw that out there.
Could be. As a Vikings fan, I hope they don't do that. But
Sure.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that Crosby was one of the ones that was, really pressing the hardest to get, Antonio Pierce hired as the full-time guy, rather than just the interim coach. He was like, no, we want to keep him on. So
this is why you don't. Yeah, and this is why you don't let the players run the thing, because Antonio Pierce is not a head coach in the NFL. He's a rah-rah guy, so the players all gather, yeah, we love our guy. Yeah, he's one of us. He played, blah, blah, blah. He's not a head coach. You look on the sideline, he's lost. He doesn't know what he's doing. The guy was in Arizona State a couple of years ago as a coordinator. Now he's a head coach in the NFL. It's a joke. So good luck paying him that contract. They'll fire him at the end of the year too, and probably have to pay another coach.
Yeah,
it
for
would
sure.
be funny though if they had Coach Prime and his son. They drafted his son as the quarterback, and they hired. I mean, it's just such a Raiders thing that would happen. Like that's the only team that would do it.
Yeah, I mean, Deion Sanders is a glorified Antonio Pierce, though. He's
exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's probably will happen.
He's funny. At least he's funny.
Yeah,
Coach Prime.
absolutely.
Raiders gonna Raider.
So yeah, the Pickens observation, I got to figure out what to do with him. He's not a league winning pick. He's a league losing pick probably. While we're at it, observation 4, guys. We looking to see in that Patriot game if anybody was going to emerge as a top target for Drake May, and I think we have a preseason darling emerging here with Demario Douglas. I made a habit of trying to pick him up. He was probably one of my most picked up guys last week on waivers just to see. And he came out with 9 targets, 6 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. This team's always going to be trailing from behind. Demario Douglas might emerge here as the one guy in the passing game that you could trust for, the Patriots and Drake May. Matt, what do you got on that?
I totally agree with that. I think he is Drake May's Josh Downs. They mentioned that like in the preseason. I picked him up last week. I was able to get him pretty cheap. He would be he is available in a couple of prime times that I'm in, and he would be my top waiver ad. I mean, you just saw with Drake May. I know you're going to see the 2 interceptions. One was just, tipped off.
It's going to happen.
It wasn't his fault. And the other interception was amazing. The guy caught the ball behind the guy's back and brought it in. And you could just see with the passes. And this kid can run. I think the game in London this week, I'm actually excited for because Jacksonville's defense is horrific. You got Drake May, who can make, though Jacksonville in that second game usually is the play, but at least there's something to watch now, something to look forward to. And if at any point Javon Baker could ever get on the field and do something, that would be fun. But yeah, Pops.
Matt, at 9:30 a.m. Eastern here. Oh, God forbid, living on the West Coast, 6:30 a.m. London start. Patriots versus Jaguars. We talked about it yesterday early, the bad start. Put another pot of coffee on.
Yes.
Put the Sanka on. Where's the Sanka? We need to, that's going to be tough to watch. Now, nobody loves the London games more than me, even though, they're usually shitty every year and slow moving. But, I love the full day of getting up real early Sunday, the early game in London, and then it leads into the full slate throughout the day. I love it, but I've been looking at this game as the third week of the London game and going, good Lord, Patriots Jags is
I
you do
be surprisingly good.
Really? All right. I mean,
Drake May has brought a spark to the Patriots offense, and the Jaguars defense is certainly not a huge obstacle. And the Patriots, they can also be scored on as well. So it could be a pretty decent game, surprisingly decent anyway. At least is not as terrible as what you guys are expecting, but we'll see.
I mean, what's the difference between the Jags defense and Carolina's defense? You just want to target those two right now. I mean, especially Jacksonville in their last 4 games have been a total sieve, and you just want to hit it.
Yeah, no, agree. My last observation from yesterday, Baker Mayfield in this Bucs offense is the real deal, I think. Fantasy goodness. He just keeps turning out good performance one week after another here. I know in week 3, he had that dud versus that Broncos defense that was on fire. But since then, Baker Mayfield, the last 3 weeks in NFFC scoring 37 points, 31 points, 36 points. He's basically neck and neck with Lamar Jackson for QB1 in NFFC scoring, the only 2 guys that have over 30 points per game. So he's right there as QB1 or 2. He's 4.5 points clear of the guy in third. Baker Mayfield, man, we keep doubting the guy. I have a couple Baker Mayfield shares, and each week I'm starting Kyler Murray over him. I'm starting Caleb Williams over him, which, okay, yesterday. But I got to get my Baker Mayfield shares in here. I'm sitting here watching 30-something points on my bench every week. I got to look at Baker Mayfield in a totally different light. He's made Chris Godwin come along with him. A healthy Chris Godwin this year is probably one of the best, if not the best pick in the top 100 for where he was going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving. Yesterday was a dream for me. I have a ton of Chris Godwin shares, so seeing those 35 fantasy points were fantastic. He's probably your wide receiver 3, maybe 4 for those ZeroRB builds. Godwin's a league-winning pick. Baker Mayfield's a league-winning pick, and this Bucs offense is definitely something you want to be invested in.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned Kyler Murray. I think Baker Mayfield is kind of who we hoped Kyler Murray was going to be.
100%. Yeah.
He's a late-round quarterback, though. He's saving seasons single-handedly, for people who either went late at quarterback or, they drafted a dud earlier. Because I thought when Canales left, Baker might regress, but he looks even better this year. I think he's really,
That was my point. That was my thinking too, Dan, was with Canales, but
right. And Godwin is in that Cooper Kupp role, and I mean he is basically he's easily a top 5 wide receiver the rest of the way he's playing. He's already top 5. Just looking back on the first 6 weeks. So take it as you will, but yeah, the Godwin pick. If you've got Godwin shares, you're very, very happy right now.
He's definitely been one of the brightest spots of my draft season so far, was being so heavily. If you guys were like, Chris, what's worked for you so far with your draft strategy? It would be targeting Chris Godwin and Deontay Johnson in basically every draft as my wide receiver in that late 4th, early 5th round. That's right now it's really taken my teams to another level where I have those guys mixed in with the right guys early on at the wide receiver, but Amon-Ra's, the DKs, and so on, Drake London's, stuff like that. But Godwin and Deontay Johnson have been really, really solid so far.
Well, the one guy we didn't mention on this Tampa Bay Bucs offense, and he's actually been really solid, even for like NFC, if you need that fill-in guy, and, in tight end premium, it's always good. It's Kate Otten. He's nothing spectacular. He's not a guy that like blows up stat lines, but he's producing. This offense is, like you guys say, they're putting up points every week. And he's just a nice guy to have, even if you don't start him on your bench and stuff like that. So just a player I wanted to mention real quick.
Otten is not rotten.
There you go, Dan.
All right. Well, I'll go into my.
By the way, wait. I'm sorry, Dan. Before we move off the Bucs, there, pour one out for Rachaad White.
Oh,
if you got
you're
Rachaad White,
right into my first point. So,
sorry. There you go. Let me
go.
And we don't know each other's points here. Just so for the listeners at home, we don't know each other's points before they come up. But
absolutely, you actually took my first point with the Baker Mayfield. So, and my second one was the Bucs backfield. I think it's turned into Bucky, Tucky, and Sucky. It's pretty much what it is. So. You got Bucky Irving, who we've known about now for 3 or 4 weeks, but Sean Tucker, man, what a revelation he's been in, and he's come in and just wow, 1 week and he looks fantastic. He looks like kind of the best of both Bucky and Rachaad White, really. Because he's just big enough, that he's got that size, he's got the speed, he can catch passes, he can kind of do it all. I mean, honestly, I don't know what Rachaad White even has to offer this backfield. I put out a tweet this morning. It was the Office Space guys doing the interview for your job. What is it you say you do around here anyway? That's what's got to be happening to Rachaad White right now, because to me, he's the third wheel. If it went Bucky and Tucker, I would be very happy. I don't have really any Tucker. I was like, man, this is going to be the Bucky show. I probably should have grabbed some more Tucker yesterday morning, Saturday night, and I didn't. And I'm really
Dan, nobody's got Tucker.
That.
Yeah, Dan, nobody's got Tucker. I mean, talk about he's going to be the biggest waiver wire ad, but is it going to be fool's gold? Because this is going to be a three-way. You know, I was all excited. I got all my Bucky shares in yesterday. I got rewarded with 18 fantasy points, but sure enough, with Rachaad White out, you're thinking Bucky Irvin's going to get 90% of this backfield, and then Tucker comes in and he's dominating and looking great. That just muddles everything, you know. And now Bucky's not playable, right? How is Sean Tucker going to be playable with Rachaad White active? Now it's three guys. I mean, Tucker really came in and messed up the whole backfield, in my opinion. But I know Rachaad White, for all you guys that were in on Rachaad White in the 4th, 5th round over there, throw that one in the garbage. That's big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Rachaad White guy. I have 0 shares of him, but I do not see him going away. I mean, Sean Tucker looked amazing. Let's look at this Saints run defense of late. They've just been getting steamrolled. I mean, Kansas City ran through them with a Kareem Hunt. I mean, the week before, Philadelphia. I mean, they've been kind of pretty bad against the run of late. And Rachaad White, for all his flaws, he can't run the ball, but he's a hell of a pass catcher. And I don't think Todd Bowles is going to go away from that. I think he's kind of a guy that he's kind of like that old school guy. He saw what he did from last year. Not saying that if he was to, not perform the next couple of weeks, he comes back, that his job couldn't be taken. But I don't see it going away.
But Matt, how do you start a Rachaad White? He's your RB 1 or 2. He's a 5th rounder on your fantasy team. How do you start a Rachaad White that's going to get less than probably 6 carries a game, right? He's going to get less than 6 because now we got to get Bucky his carries, Tucker his carries. What are you going to bring Rachaad White in on your 3rd down, and you're going to hope he catches 5, 6 balls a week? You got to pray for a 5 for 40 out of the backfield. He's a 10-point week. Start Justice Hill instead of
I don't think you can
Rachaad
start
White.
him neither anymore, right?
Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
He'll get nerfed by Mark Andrews.
Let me answer that question. My answer is this: I don't have Rachaad White, so I don't got to worry about it. But if you own him,
I'm with you. I have 0 shares.
He's a flex play at best. But I don't think. My point is, I don't think the Bucs are not going to use him, and he is really good as a pass catcher. So for that aspect of it, I'm just saying, for like you said, is Sean Tucker fool's gold? And we're going to see some monster bids this week. So I'm just saying, you got Bucky, Tucker, like you said, there's 3 guys there now. But that was my point.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting bids at running back, because we were talking about all the backup running backs that are hitting, and some of, and some of those hit the waiver wire this past week when people were having to, drop players that they wanted to hang on to just in order to field the starting lineup, between buys and injuries and everything. So it's going to be kind of an interesting week out there on the waiver wire because I think there's going to be some running backs worth grabbing in almost every league. All right, Mark Andrews. He's slowly gaining ground towards being a startable tight end again. I think maybe he's getting a little bit healthier. I was really down on him early on, but after 2 weeks with no goose eggs, he's getting, his usage profile is improving every single week. He made a visit to the end zone this week. To me, he's kind of starting to re-enter that circle of trust. I mean, in a lot of cases, you don't have a lot of, ability to bench him anyway. But before it was like not a conversation. Are you going to start Zach Ertz or Mark Andrews? You're going to start Zach Ertz. Now I think the conversation is there. Maybe I do need to be starting Mark Andrews. So, I think my take on it is don't hold a grudge, against Andrews for his first few weeks because he does still have that, ability to perform as an elite tight end. So, if he's consistently making that move, then, you probably want to get him in your starting lineup a little bit preemptively instead of waiting for that, 20-plus point week and you're like, oh, I didn't start him.
Dan, so last week I brought up the Mark Andrews discussion. We talked about it. I put in a bid last week of $310 on Mark Andrews. I won him in a big league. The runner-up bid was $189, so I did overbid. But to my point last week was you had to take that shot. And not only right. So I take that shot, I have him on my team, and it's funny because it's a Zach Ertz tight end team. And I said, let me get Andrews. So now I have Andrews and Ertz. And I started Ertz over Andrews yesterday. To be fair, I bid that money, but like I said, it's a get him, see if his season starts turning around, and now you could go with him. This Ravens offense is just too special to leave a player like him out there. So going forward, Andrews will be my starting tight end on a team. It completed a team that the roster had everything at each position except a tight end that I was taking whatever Zach Ertz gave me. But, that's just a follow-up. I did get Andrews. I think going forward, he's a top 10 tight end. Even if he gives you the 5 for 50 and a touchdown, that's a top 10 tight end every week. And I think in this offense, when you look around it, after Zay Flowers, it's nothing. So Andrews is going to get you what you needed.
I like it. Yeah, you were definitely right on that. I mean, I stumped hard against Andrews last week, and he's proven me wrong at least this week. So, and I do think you're doing the right thing. Just put him in there, and Zach Ertz is, he gives you a nice floor, but Andrews is where the ceiling gets potentially unlocked anyway.
Yeah. It's just buying into offenses, guys. Like, with 6 weeks in now, you want guys in the Ravens offense. You want guys in Washington's offense. We know what 10, 12 teams we want to avoid. We know what 10, 12 teams we want to be all in on in fantasy. And then the rest of the league is somewhere in the middle week to week. And that's the way I see it.
Yep, definitely. All right. My third observation is Joe Mixon. He's right back to being a bell cow. If that game had been closer, he'd have dominated touches even more. To me, he's moved right back into Kamara, Kyron, Barkley territory. He is on a great offense. He's going to get a ton of touches. He's getting used in the passing game. There's everything that you want to see there. And, he's scored over 25 points both games that he's been in the entire game. The Vikings game, though, he was in for a good chunk of it. Didn't look quite as special, but still, I think that was a little bit more the outlier. I think Mixon's going to be, somebody. If you were able to weather his absence, he's going to help your team come roaring back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any Mixon, and like you said, the 2 games, I will say. The Colts, and you had New England yesterday. So, but the Vikings defense is just tough. I mean, you got to give the Vikings defense credit. I mean, that is just an impressive unit there. So,
Mixon, Dan, to your Mixon point, that was the one of my decisions yesterday that just hurt me all day long. Was painful. I have one Mixon share in a big league, and I sat him yesterday, hand up, and I ate that 27 fantasy points. I went back and forth on. I really just thought they were going to bring him back into this offense, a little nicked up. Pierce was active. I was like, oh, you got Pierce, you got Dare, you got Akers. Are they going to give Mixon like a 50%? I didn't like the way the game was set up. I thought that the Houston-New England game would be an ugly, low-scoring game. Credit to C.J. Stroud and this Texans offense. They were one of the bright spots yesterday. They changed my outlook on them. Going forward here, you're 100% right. Mixon's locked in now going forward, as a top 10 running back in this offense. But with Nico out for the foreseeable future, it's such a condensed offense. It's Diggs is going to see 10 targets every week. Tank's going to be right there with 10 targets. Schultz going to be a top 10 tight end with the targets he gets. No one else is really going to touch the ball. And Mixon, we missed him for the last 3 weeks, but, be glad you have him. I wish I had more Mixon. I was out on him. He was a fade of mine, but I did grab him in one of my last leagues, like I said. And sometimes you get lucky with a guy that you're really out on. You grab a share and you benefit. And Mixon's going to be that guy, I think.
Yeah, especially if you grabbed him one of your big leagues, that's the right spot to have him too. So
yeah,
no doubt about that. Yeah, I've got a lot of Mixon just because I was buying into, it was the Houston offense, and I'm looking at Dameon Pierce and Cam Akers and Dare Ogunbowale, and I'm like, there's nobody here on this roster, who can hold a candle to Mixon. So even though I didn't love Mixon, as a player, it was just like, well, the situation's right, so I don't want to be out on him, and a lot of times he was falling a little bit too, so I kind of got the best of both worlds. I happened to be at about the right spot in the draft where he was falling, and I would scoop him up. I've had some players where I was kind of on the other end of it, where it's like I'd watch a player fall and I could never, but it was at the other end of the draft board. And by the time it got back to me, that player's long gone. So, sometimes it's being in the right places at the right times.
And that's where I got Mixon in that particular draft, was like late in the 60s. And I was like, but to your point, Dan, this is the season so far of those mid-round running backs that nobody wanted, and they're winning their weekly leagues now. Kamara, nobody wanted. Mixon, not a lot of people wanted Mixon. I'm just talking about that.
Yep.
You always have a feel when you're in the drafts late in August and September, the cold names, the hot names, the Aaron Jones, nobody really wanted. He was kept falling. James Conner, even those guys are killing it right now. Montgomery, Conner didn't have a good game yesterday, but I'm saying overall through 6 weeks, Aaron Jones, Kamara, and Mixon, these guys are stars right now at the running back position.
Yeah, I think
quick.
Just
real quick.
One real quick point, Matt, and then I'm going to turn it over to you. Nelson was actually probably the one who was holding up James Cook's ADP single-handedly. He was taking Cook everywhere. If it hadn't been for him, I think Cook might have sagged an ADP just like these other guys. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
You're right.
No, just mentioning the Mixons, the Kamaras, and all these running backs that were going in that range. I pretty much don't have any of them, but you can still have a good team. It's just the point that I want to make. Of course, especially with all these wide receiver injuries, if you can fill them in with good players, you're at an advantage. And if you have that one running back and you can get, you had these stashes, or, you had a decent RB2, there's basically, the point is you can do it without that. There's obviously ways to win in this game, and doesn't have to be ZeroRB, doesn't have to be robust running back, yada, yada, Chris.
Plenty of combos. Yeah. Plenty of combos. But Matt, don't you see, and Dan, don't you guys see that each week your lineups, at least I know mine are, they always have those holes, each week it's like, and you look around everyone's lineup, it's like, all right, 4 or 5 really good performances, and then you're eating 2 or 3 bad games from guys, that's, and mostly your RB2, is it the week that DeAndre Swift or Tony Pollard give you 4, or do they give you 22? And does James Conner give you a 22 this week, or does he give you a 6? Does Aaron Jones go out and get hurt and give you 5, or does he give you 20? But it's a week to week roller coaster that we're on, and you never know what you're going to get.
But also too, there's leagues, I can't get Josh Downs in there, or Malik Neighbors was out this week, and I looked at my 4 receivers, and I'm like, I'm putting Neighbors in, but who the hell am I taking out? And, those are good things to have. And you can, if you're bullying the wide receiver position at such a, at such a premium, to me, especially in the PPR format, that works out really well. And we'll see. Hopefully Cooper Kupp's coming back this week. I heard maybe week 7.
It's another big thing to look for. Yeah.
Maybe Puka's week 8 or just after that. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum because honestly, I've been getting killed by the wide receiver injuries, more so than the running back injuries. I'm like, I had a ton of A.J. Brown, Cooper Kupp, Nico Collins, it's like, okay, here's my top 3 draft choices, and so now I'm down to my round 4 guy, and when that happens, and you're also weak at running back, which you tend to be when you go 0 RB. then bad things happen. So I hear exactly what you're saying. It's just, there's also, like you were saying, you didn't get very many of those mid-round running backs. I ended up not getting enough of probably the mid-round wide receivers because I was so confident in the round guys being able to carry me. Then I'd go grab a mid-round running back and then come back and hit wide receiver again. But, I've got some great teams that are doing very, very well, but I've also got some teams that are just absolutely being destroyed by injuries. So hopefully some of these guys can come back and, help me mount to come back.
Yeah, definitely a mixed bag. And that's and then you deal with all the zeros, like you said, you not only the injuries, but Etienne a zero, Olave and Harrison go out first couple minutes of the game. You eat those zeros. For people that play volume like all of us, when you own shares, and luckily I have zero Olave and Harrison, but listen, I've been on the other end of this. You take zeros straight across the board, 3, 4, 5 teams. It's painful. It leads to a bad Sunday overall when you have those zeros in your lineup. Mike Evans and Ayuk took the week off with 5 points. It's on and on, but hopefully we're all out here just dodging the injury bug, as much as we possibly can. Dan, Go ahead, buddy. Get back to you with your observations.
All right. My last observation, Will Levis, he's killing the Titans offense. I mean, Matt could probably speak to this better than anybody, but Ridley and Hopkins are absolutely unstartable no matter how many targets they get. Ridley had 8 targets, 145 air yards, and he got exactly as many fantasy points out of it as I did. So, it's horrible. I mean, Ridley and Hopkins are right now the number 81 and 83 in fantasy points per game at the wide receiver position. It's just, to me, it's unfathomable that at least one of those guys isn't startable, but that's the case with Levis at quarterback. I mean, fantasy-wise, they've got to make the move to Mason Rudolph. If they want to have any chance at the playoffs, I think they got to make the move to Mason Rudolph, but I'm not sure they're going to make the move to Mason Rudolph. What do you think about that, Matt?
I think they have to make the move. I mean, he cost them the game against the Bears. The Jet game, they had a real shot at winning that one too. And if you watched any of that game yesterday, I didn't watch a lot, but I mean, outside of Tony Pollard, especially with the Spears, I think he hurt his ankle or something. I mean, who else?
Hammy.
Hammy. Who are you going to start on that team? I mean, you just can't. I mean, he's just been a train wreck. And I know last year, what was interesting last year, that first game, he threw like those 4 bombs and he had a couple of big touchdowns. And then the rest of it was pretty much crap if you looked into it. So I don't think they have a choice but to move on. It'd be interesting tomorrow night, on Tuesday nights here in Nashville on like their Channel 7, their ABC. They have the coach on. So I'll be curious to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Matt.
Oh, okay. I think I might have 2 points left, so which is good because the way it's been going, it's been a great format. But we talked about the rookie running backs. The year 2 wide receivers had their shine this week, and I mean, unfortunately, Rashee Rice, we got to spill one out for him, but we saw what a year 2 wide receiver he was going to be. But Zay that first half, we didn't get anything in the second half, but that first half was glorious. It was glorious. Crazy. I was hoping for like a 200-yard week, but still fantastic. Tank Dell without the Nico got close to the 30% target share, and obviously when Nico comes back, he's probably going to slide back down. But right now, enjoy the ride. Jaden Reed, hopefully he's all right because he's just a beast. He is like the Debo 2.0. And one of my biggest regrets was I was all in on him. I was drafting a bunch of him. And then late, I kind of switched to Watson with all the buzz. And a lot of, everybody seemed to be like the Watson train just got so hot. But Reed's a beast. I just love watching that guy as a player. And as you mentioned earlier, Demario Douglas, he's in the perfect spot right now. I mean, he really is to be that PPR machine. You know, you're playing PPR. I don't want to hear the Wandell Robinson crap. Oh, he had more points than this guy, and he had, only had 40 yards, 50 yards. It's the game you signed up to play. So stop complaining. So the year 2 wide receiver was really good. And I forgot Josh Downs. Josh Downs has 24 receptions on 30 targets in the last 3 weeks. Every game he's played this year, he's gotten a minimum of 25% targets. So, that's really encouraging. Hopefully when A-Rich comes back, it'll be real good. And I have one more, but I'll wait a second.
All right. Yeah, we're going to quickly pay some bills again, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back. Matt, go ahead. Let's hit us again.
Last one, the quarterback situation, especially this week, you had some quarterbacks on buys and all that. Drake May, I'm bullish on him going forward. You see the arm, he can run. That's what you want in fantasy. That's, he's got the perfect profile. He's got a bad team. They'll be playing from behind. So that's a good thing. Matthew Stafford was somebody I added in a couple of leagues this week too, because you want to talk about May, Dan?
Well, yeah, just real quickly, I had a team where I had Mahomes on bye, and I didn't have a backup quarterback yet. This was FFPC, so sometimes you can get away with that a little bit more there. And so Trevor Lawrence and Drake May were both out there. I grabbed them both because I was like, well, I feel like Lawrence might be good, but not this week because of Chicago. So I took Drake May to handle this week, and it was like, it's a total shot in the dark. But, this was a team where I was like, I need to score some points here. I got to take some chances. And May worked out pretty well. And as a matter of fact, I might end up keeping May and throwing back Trevor Lawrence. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, in the first main event we did, the first slow one, I had the KC stack, and Mahomes had the bye. So this week, I actually added May. I started May because I had nobody else. I added Stafford as well for the future weeks because if Cup's coming back, Puka's coming back, and the kid Whittington can be something, you got Kyron, that offense will be a lot better. So I had to start, Drake May, and I got Garrett Wilson yet to go, and I got 152 points. So hopefully that's a good thing. Matthew Stafford, like I said, for those reasons, this offense should get better, should get healthier and get better. And the last guy, for like a wing and a prayer kind of thing, Spencer Rattler, he should be quarterback in the next 3 or 4 weeks. He's got versus Denver, the Chargers, at Carolina, versus Atlanta in the next 4 if he's the quarterback. He had no Chris Olave this week. I mean, what was it, like their second or third play? I mean, that was a helmet to helmet. He was knocked out. I knew immediately he was done. So, if you can get Olave back in there,
he won't have Olave. No, Matt, he won't have Olave. They're playing Thursday night. Olave with the concussion. You probably want to avoid Rattler anyway versus Denver's D. But then again, Surtain went out early with a concussion too, so he probably won't be in that game either.
Well, also they're giving up a lot of points. So I mean, Denver's offense, but he's the wing and a prayer option if you just if you're really hurting, you got to buy this week. If you have a Dak Caleb team right now, hopefully you get May or Stafford, but if not.
Chris Olave pick is really turning out to be one of the disasters of the season as well. I mean, there's been some really god awful picks that sink your team, like Olave, Etienne, guys like that. If you landed on multiple, if It's okay if you
guy
land
worse
with
than
one
Olave.
share or 2 shares of these guys, but if you were in on these guys and you have a lot of shares, it's going to be a long season.
Yeah, when we do the stock up, stock down, I got a guy who's basically Olave. Because I used Olave last week, so I won't use him this week. So I went to another guy.
I'm gonna guess it might be an Ohio State wide receiver because honestly, all those guys have been.
You get it.
Yeah, all those guys have been underperforming. I think the whole Ohio State wide receiver narrative is starting to get a little bit overheated. Jackson Smith and Jigba, not so good. Olave, not so good. Marvin Harrison Jr., not so good. Garrett Wilson was struggling up until last week, and even then, it was like it took 22 targets, and he got you only, it was a nice game, but for 22 targets, man, that should have been a massive smash game. So
that should have been a 40-burger.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so just wanted to throw that in there. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we're gonna do the stock up, stock down.
Yeah, definitely. Why don't you go ahead and lead off on that, Matt, since you had to go last on this one, and we took all your comments. So why don't you go first so we don't steal anything from you?
For the stock up, it's pretty much the guys we talked about, the Mario Douglas, how he's, really should have a chance to, fill a nice role. The obvious ones I'm not going to get into. We talked about. I'll just go to the stock down here. And like I said, I used Olave last week. Yes, we're going back to Ohio State. Marvin Harrison Jr., yes, he got knocked out of the game yesterday as well. But in 4 of the other 5 games, he has 36 yards, 45 yards, 64 yards, and 4 yards. Now, part of the problem, too, is Kyler has been kind of really erratic this year, too. There's some weeks he looks really good, and some weeks, he looks no bueno. So, this guy was end of the first, early second, Marvin Harrison Jr., even ahead of Olave. Olave did go up there on a couple of occasions, but Marvin Harrison Jr. was entrenched really around that turn. So right now, for me, he's got the stock down, quarterback as well, but he's got the talent to obviously change that.
Matt, that end of the, back to draft season, nobody wanted to be at the end of the first round, and it's really coming to fruition, right? If you landed on the wrong combination at the end of the first round over there, your season's almost done. Olave, Marvin Harrison, if you wound up with that combo, Jonathan Taylor's missed a couple weeks now.
AJ Brown, sometimes fell down there.
AJ Brown's missed some weeks. Yeah, it's you're playing from behind is the moral of the story. I know we're going into week 7. It's definitely not over. Your team could get hot, but I highly doubt you're the team that's, at the top of the standings, 5-1, top 3 points. If you were in the back end of the first round, unless you were that Drake London Barkley combo, you're probably fighting an uphill battle this year. And yeah, Matt, it's been rough sledding for Marvin Harrison. Other than that first half in week 2 when he went off, it hasn't been great at all. And he's taking Kyler and the rest of this Cardinals offense down with them. The Cardinals offense has been all types of suck.
I think I'd reverse that. I'd say Kyler is taking the offense down, but
sure,
it's kind of funny because at the back end of the first round, the conventional wisdom was, you want to draft wide receivers because there's no way the running backs you're going to get there are going to be able to keep up with McCaffrey and Brees and Bijan. And, you think about it, and you could have had, Saquon or you could have had Derrick Henry there, and it turns out, that actually chasing those running backs was probably the way to go because the front half of the first round running backs have disappointed, and the back half of the first round running backs have absolutely smashed. So it's a funny game.
Yeah, injury definitely played a big part in that. You look
at for sure.
You look at the Rashee Rices who got moved up, or I even took him 11th in my last Vegas prime. I didn't want to be in the right pick. Cooper Kupp, early second.
You're right, Matt.
Like, everybody was like, he's the 1-1 now. So,
Matt, this is definitely another huge narrative of this drafting season so far is you could have drafted perfectly, but you're fucked, right? Rashee Rice, Neighbors, Nico Collins, Cooper Kupp. Those are probably the 4 best wide receiver picks. We lost them all. I mean, Neighbors we haven't had for 2 weeks. That's a whole nother situation that, there's no point in getting into that. But hopefully this doesn't linger and it's just a 2-week absence. Hopefully we get him back. Like you said earlier, Cooper Kupp, hopefully getting him back. But, after seeing the first couple of weeks, Cooper Kupp was the pick to have. Nico Collins was the pick to have. Rashee Rice was the guy. You had a combination of that and you were off and running this year. And sometimes – I really hate when I hear, non-high stakes drafters say, you got lucky or, luck's a big part of the game. And we take it as offensive because we're like, no, we put a lot of time into drafting and drafting strategy. So no, luck isn't a part of the game. But you know what? A lot of the time, injury luck is part of the game. Because I see guys that have Nico and Cooper Kupp sitting at the end of their bench with, the IR spot, and they're at the, what are you going to do?
I'll give a good point. Our main that we did in Vegas together, Chris, I started Garrett Wilson, Malik Neighbors, and Nico Collins. So, having to survive that.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I got, Watson hopefully does something now. I got Downs in there. And who else did I pick up? I picked up Pops. I picked up the Mario Douglas. So you got to just keep grinding and trying to fill in and, roll with the punches,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I'm living that life with those wide receivers that all went down in some of my leagues. But, again, that's to the point of, why you draft a portfolio and you make sure that you're varying things around. You don't get just stuck on one particular style of draft. You got to move things around and come up with different ways to attack the draft from the same draft position so that you're not totally stuck. If, AJ Brown and Cooper Kupp go out, you're not dead in the water.
Yeah. I mean,
this is the year. Yeah. Sorry, go man.
Okay. For me, real quick, there's a couple of nice bench receivers. They're bench receivers. They're not guys you can rely on every week. But like the Jalen Tolberts, like Chris was mentioning, I got a couple of him. Michael Wilson, he got saved by the touchdown. But these are guys, Alec Pierce can catch a touchdown at any point. And these are kind of guys you need to have on your bench where you can throw them in on the bye weeks or if a guy's out for a week or two. They're not guys you can roll out every week. But,
Yep.
Here's the way I see the season shaping up here, guys. If you draft, we just talked about the way guys drafted, and if you landed on the Cooper Kupps, the Nico Collins, the Neighbors, the guys like that, Rice is gone for the season, so I'm not including him. But players like that, if you are a great manager and you're making the right moves, the right calls weekly right now, this is going to be the year where you can sneak your team in, just say in an NFFC, sneak it in late, maybe the third place team, you get in on points or record or whatever, and you're going to win the whole thing. If you're a great manager and you're putting the Josh Downs in, the Darnell Moonies, the Demario Douglas, you're hitting these guys at the right week right now. You're buying time in weeks 4, 5, 6, 7. You sneak that team into the playoffs and you look at these guys' benches and they're the Nico Collins owner, the Cooper Kupp owner, those guys, and you can bring those guys back into your lineup once you hit late in the season. Get yourself in, and then you're a loaded team, and you're like, wow, the Cooper Kupp owner, the Nico Collins owner won everything this year. How did he do that? He missed the guy for 7-8 weeks. Oh, wow, he was the guy that picked up, I'm blanking on some names, but made those savvy moves off the waiver wires, snuck in a 20-point game out of nowhere. Oh, he was the guy that got Darius Slayton for 2 weeks in weeks 5 and 6 and got the 27 and the 26. He played Baker Mayfield in those middle weeks when he was getting 37 points. Guys like that, that's what separates the great players, the average players. You make good moves like that now and you get your studs back later. you win the whole thing. I doubt. My point is this: I doubt the guy that's leading the field all year long, the guy that's healthy straight through, is going to be the guy that wins it all. That's my point.
Pretty much never the case that happens. It's like last year. I ended the year as the OC regular season champion. But all it takes is one bad week in the playoffs and you're toast. And I had that one bad week. I had a 49er super stack, and the week they ran into the Ravens buzzsaw defense, that was it. I was toast.
Yeah, I'll never forget the year that the Denver Broncos offense was, Peyton Manning and everything, and I led the NFFC primetime from weeks 1 straight through the regular season. I went into the playoffs, and the first game they played was a Thursday night game, and they bombed out.
Yeah,
and it was over.
You're dead,
and it was over just like that. So you're right, Dan. It's just one team, 1 week bombed out. That's it. You got to just get in, get hot, and that's it. In our thing, there is no real standings. It's not the real NFL where you're like, oh, that's the 15-1 team. That's unbelievable. No, you get in, and you got the right combination of hot players, and boom, you take off.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because if you'd have taken that San Francisco-Baltimore game and put it anywhere else in the first 14 weeks and moved another one of those games back into the week 15 where they played, I still could have won it all. I wouldn't have won the regular season title, but I would have probably won the whole tournament just because of, it was that one bad week and the one wrong place. And that's, but that's the way it is. I mean, we all know what we're going into. The shootout is the shootout.
Yep.
All right, Chris, why don't you give us your stock up, stock down?
My stock up, we touched on it earlier. I'm sure we touch on a lot of things this show. So I'm just going to, my stock up is Tony Pollard. I like what I see out of him. He's running hard. He looks fast again. This Tennessee offense, I think if they're smart, starts turning their offensive plan over to a run-heavy approach behind Tony Pollard. Mix in two things. Going forward, this Tajay Spears injury that he picked up leaving the game early with a hammy, he's probably on the shelf for a couple of weeks. I haven't heard anything, but most likely these hamstrings usually lead to a multiple-week absence. You don't have to worry about him. He'll get the full backfield to himself. And I know a lot of people were investing heavily into this Tennessee passing game offense as a sneaky, way to go about it in fantasy with Levis and the receivers. That's just not coming to fruition at all. So maybe Tony Pollard's going to be what we thought he would last year. So the stock's up on him, as well as Chris Godwin and Joe Mixon. We touched on them earlier. My stock down. We touched on basically all of them too. Rashad White was at the head of my stock down, along with Javonte Williams and Kyler Murray and the Arizona offense, who have scored 13, 14 points, 3 out of the last 4 weeks. They snuck in a win versus San Francisco somehow on the road last week. But other than that, it's been a terrible last month for Kyler Murray owners. Yep,
no doubt. So my stock up player, I'll throw out Caleb Williams. We kind of talked about him a little bit, but I was bagging on him pretty hard in the early going, the first couple weeks of the season. So I gotta give him his props. The Bears offense is starting to figure it out. It looks like they're setting up Williams for success more. He's doing a better job of taking what's there. And he's got the weapons now. The protection's been better. So, Caleb Williams is starting to look good again. And I think he's got a nice little run in front of him. So, he does have a bye coming up here. But other than that, I think we might be looking in good shape.
The bye week comes at a terrible time for the Bears, unfortunately. But let's talk about real quick the narrative on this Bears offense. If you go back 3 weeks ago and how everybody was down on the Bears offense, but the one person that people had the arrow pointing up on was Rome Odunze. And now, if you fast forward 3 weeks later, Rome Odunze, you might see him dropped in some leagues. Keenan Allen stepping up yesterday, looking good. Cole Kmet now looking fantastic the last 3 weeks here as a third option. Rome Odunze might be a distant fourth in this offense. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't put words in my mouth. I'm not saying you drop a Rome Odunze. That's a guy that you send to your bench. You make him sit on your bench, and you forget about him for a little while. He's basically the wide receiver stash that we all do at the running back position. But it's just funny how the narrative has completely switched on mostly everybody in this Bears offense, including Caleb Williams going forward. I'm loving the fact that I have a ton of Caleb Williams shares, and I'm not playing any games with him going forward. When he comes out of the bye, he's my starting quarterback on my Caleb Williams teams.
For me, like I said, the next, whatever it is, 3 weeks or so after the bye, their schedule is still really nice. I'm still going to have a little reservation that it's Carolina and Jacksonville that they totally shredded. Because, I mean, those are just garbage teams. Everybody's doing that to them. So I do want to see it long term. It's going to be interesting. After the following month, when they get into divisional play, because 5 of the next 6 games after that are against the divisional rivals and the 49ers. The 49ers defense hasn't been good yet this year. Maybe that gets fixed. So that'll be an interesting window. Just throwing that out there. I'm not hating on anybody. I'm just making points that you should be looking at. Context matters. That's all.
Yep, definitely. And it's kind of interesting to me that Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet are both doing so well, because I thought that was going to be kind of an either-or conversation. Dunze would be the guy who was,
two.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it turns out
preseason-wise, that's what it sounded like. They had this great connection.
Yep, but now it's both Keenan Allen and Cole Kmet are looking great. So my stock down guy was George Pickens. I think we bashed on him enough, so we'll just move on to the fantasy carnivals and fantasy duds. I'll throw out one. This is I'm going to pick the low hanging fruit here, but hey, I'm a Vikings guy, so I got to take this one. Minnesota versus Detroit. Vikings versus
Start them all.
Start them all. Start everybody. Vikings coming off a bye. They should be rested and ready to go. You probably won't see Aaron Jones, but you'll see Ty Chandler. The whole passing offense should be going. I think there's a chance that TJ Hawkinson is out there. I don't think it will happen, but it could happen. So be ready for that too. So yeah, that could be a fun game. For my dud, honestly, the Thursday night game looks terrible, but give me the Pittsburgh and Jets game. That just I'm afraid that's going to be like watching paint dry. So
rock fight.
I don't want to be starting a lot of guys from that game for sure. So Matt, who you got?
For me, for the Carnival, it's Carolina at Washington. Washington should put up a ton of points against the Carolina defense. I'm going to keep targeting them. And Carolina should score points against Washington's defense. So I'm actually, from a fantasy purpose, really excited about that game. And my dud, hoping I'm wrong here, but it's Cincinnati at Cleveland. Cincinnati's had a lot of – they just don't match up well against Cleveland, it seems like, every year. And Cleveland's offense, they the first team – in years, terrible. Not to score 20 points in their first 6 games.
So bad.
It's just, you said it, Chris. It's just really Nick Chubb coming back. Excited to see that. I think they're going to ease him back that first game too. I don't think he's going to, be a workhorse maybe that first game or two, but it'd be good to see him back. As a Bengal, fan in fantasy, I'm hoping I'm wrong on that, but it just hasn't been a good matchup for them.
Yep. No doubt, Matt, that Carolina-Washington game, I think I saw 51 as the total, so it's not under the radar. People are expecting some points. That's a real good one. You guys hit on the 2 Carnivals that I had circled as well. My third one would be and I'm hoping, that this is, I'm going back to the well on Seattle, and I'm going back to the well on Atlanta. That Seattle-Atlanta game in the Dome, studs everywhere, DK, Drake London, Mooney, JSN, hopefully. this game on the turf, indoors, we had a nice breakout game with Bijan yesterday to make all us Bijan owners take a nice, heavy, deep breath in. That game has a total of 50 or 51 as well. So all three of those games that we just mentioned are right around 50, 51. And those are looking good. Matt, what do you got on that?
I just wanted to ask you.
Yes.
I'm a Bijan owner too, and I need Bijan. And it was great. He had 25 or so points. And I know late the game got out of reach, but it's looking like Algier is just never going to go away. And he's going to have maybe too much of a role. Not that he's going to take away, but he's going to, maybe cap the ceiling that we all wanted for Bijan. I'm hoping I'm wrong. But
Matt, here's the thing with this topic. And listen, if you're a Bijan or Breece Hall owner, has it worked out the way we hope? No, we thought Bijan, at least I will. I'll speak for myself. When I took Bijan and Breece number 1 overall in all my drafts, I was hoping that the two of them were the next Christian McCaffrey, and that this was the year that they both turned into the McCaffreys of the league, rushing and receiving the ball. I didn't think that Braylon Allen would play this type of role for the Jets, obviously. And I didn't think I thought Tyler Algier would take a huge backseat to Bijan. Has it worked out like that? No, but I still think Bijan and Breece are going to be two great first-round picks. Bijan and Breece are going to have enough on their plate to eat. It's just Allen and Algier aren't going away. They're both solid running backs. They're both going to get a piece of the pie. With that all being said, we wanted a Barkley or Henry. You know what I mean? We wanted the Barkley Henry role where you don't even see anyone else right now. I mean, listen, maybe I'm speaking wrong with Justice Hill with Henry, but I'm talking, just the bell cow like a Barkley where he's got the whole backfield. He doesn't come off the field 95%. He's like just out there. And it's frustrating as a Bijan or Breece Hall owner to see that Algier and Allen's in there.
I agree that they're going to be fine and give you that first round value, but my concern is more that if they don't score the touchdown with the production, it's not going to be that RB1 week. That's my worry. That's what I'm hoping does not translate. And I know, look, Bijan was on the injury report before the Thursday night game. He went off the injury report, was back on the injury report before this week's game. So it could be the hammy issue, but I don't think Algier's going away. He looks good enough that he's going to have a role there. But I'm hoping
he's a solid running back. Yeah.
Yeah. He's kind of the closer. He's the closer there because you know what? Once they got the game, starting to look pretty well in hand, you want to kind of put Bijan in bubble wrap if you're the Falcons. They're not playing fantasy football out there. They're more interested in winning the next game and the next game and the next game. If we got this one wrapped up, let's this is as NFL fans, this is what we want them to do. Get those best players out of there and make sure they stay safe and go ahead and let Algier close it out. So
it worked out perfectly if you started Algier on a spot start yesterday.
And I did in a couple places. So.
There you go. Yeah. I'll get us out of here on the fantasy dud of the week. We touched on it. Guys, we have a golden opportunity on Thursday night to be heroes. Tell your wife, your girlfriend, get dressed. We're going out to dinner. It's time to be heroes, guys. There's no reason. There's nothing going on in this Denver-New Orleans game on both sides of the ball. Maybe you're a Kamara owner, but other than that, this is the time to say, she'll look at you and say, wait, Thursday night's football, isn't it? No, don't worry about it, sweetheart. Let's go out to dinner. We need to spend some time together, a little quality time. So, gentlemen, we don't have many of these opportunities during the football season, but this Thursday night is the time to be the hero. Take a pass on this Broncos-Saints game and come back strong the following week. I want nothing to do with this. And it's kind of funny because the second game that I think will be a dud that I didn't want any part of really is that Pats Jags game. So the first 2 games of the week, the Thursday nighter and the early London game, I don't have many shares of anybody on either side. So it'll be nice to just sit back and get my week started at 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah, yep, definitely. I'm going to throw out one more carnival that we didn't mention because I think it could be a fun one. That's Baltimore and Tampa Bay.
That's what I was going to say.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good call there, Dan.
That's one of those games, Dan, that's one of those games I'm heavily invested on both sides of those teams. But it's one of those games that on paper we've been getting screwed by in fantasy and in the NFL through 6 weeks. It looks like, oh, my God, let's sit down. This is going to be unbelievable. Let's hope for that 38-35 game. Lamar and Baker back and forth, weapons all over. And let's hope it doesn't dud out because most of these games aren't living up to the hype when it looks that good on paper. Sans the Ravens and Bengals game, last week that looked great. We hoped that it would work out that way, and it did. But, we'll see. But that's that.
Definitely.
And
Matt,
Houston,
I think
Green
you
Bay.
had one more.
Yeah, Houston versus Green Bay. Hopefully the fireworks are there. 2 great young quarterbacks. That should be a fun one.
Yep, for sure. All right, yeah, a lot of fun, and I think this week it looks like more carnivals than duds to me, but so hopefully it works out like that. But we're gonna get you guys out of here. We've been on for almost an hour and a half. We want to thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure you're checking us out next Tuesday, 11 o'clock Eastern. I won't be here. I'm not sure who's going to be taking over for me. I'm going to start banging on Theo to get that resolved, but we'll definitely have something out there. Nelson should be back, so that'll be great.
Nelson's off his bye week. Yeah, Nelson's off his bye week, and Dan, you're on your bye. Me and Matt have I think we have the late bye weeks, the week 14 dreaded bye weeks. Hopefully we have our leagues wrapped up by then.
That's right. Yeah, you guys will be able to hold those over our heads. Yeah, I'm going to take my bye when I'm darn ready to. So, definitely. But next week also marks the halfway point of the fantasy regular season. We'll at that point be 7 games down, 7 games to go. So it'll be a good time to take stock of what's been going on. But in the meantime, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the Player Profiler channel. We appreciate both of those things. If you're listening to the podcast, especially on iTunes, give the show a like there as well. And until then, good luck to all our viewers. We are out of here.